Have you ever gone silent, thinking you'd leave her spinning, haunted by your absence? You thought she'd feel it like a storm crashing into her world, didn't you? You thought pulling back would flip the power dynamic, have her chasing you, her chest tight with regret. But instead, what happened? She didn't flinch. She didn't even blink. She moved on like you were never there. And there you are, in your own silence, feeling invisible. Why? Because your silence didn't cut. Listen to me carefully. Silence isn't magic. It's not some secret weapon that works just because you stop talking. Silence is violence when done right, but it's absolutely nothing if you don't have the power to back it up. If you think silence alone will save you, you've already lost the game. Silence without weight, that's just a shadow passing in the dark, seen for a moment, then forgotten forever. Let me hit you with something real. Silence only works when you work. If your life is empty, if your presence hasn't made a dent, your absence won't even scratch the surface. Do you understand that? You can't go silent and expect her world to shatter if you didn't matter in the first place. The cold truth? If your silence didn't leave her gasping for air, it's because your presence didn't take her breath away. This is where most people mess up. They think silence is about withholding words. No, silence is about what you've built before you pull back. It's about creating a void so massive, so undeniable, that when you disappear, it feels like gravity itself shifted. That's the kind of silence that shakes people to their core. Have you ever watched someone powerful walk away? Not storming off, not playing games, just leaving. That silence, it's deafening. It's not because they stopped talking, it's because their silence was backed by years of purpose, discipline, and self-respect. Their silence wasn't empty, it was an earthquake. Now let me show you the other side. You're scrolling her socials, wondering if she's thinking about you, replaying your silence like a broken record. Meanwhile, she's out there, laughing, living, untouched by the storm you thought you unleashed. And you're the one stuck in her silence. Do you feel that? That's what happens when you don't have the guts to make your silence mean something. Silence is like a knife. It's sharp, precise, and cuts deep, but only if you know how to wield it. Most people are swinging it around like a toy, wondering why no one's bleeding. Silence without value is the dull edge of a butter knife. It doesn't cut, it doesn't scare, it doesn't leave a scar. But when you're forged in fire, when you've built a life so undeniable, your silence becomes a weapon. It carves a mark into her mind she can't ignore. And here's the crazy part. When your silence is done right, you don't just make her notice your absence. You make her notice herself. You force her to sit in her own thoughts, questioning everything, spiraling in the void you created. That's the kind of silence that keeps people up at night. So stop thinking silence is some quick-fix strategy. You want to go silent? Fine. But first, you better build a presence so powerful, so magnetic, that when you leave, the echo of you is louder than anything you ever said. Your silence needs to feel like a slap, a scream, a moment that shifts her world. Here's the deal. Smash that like button if you're ready to stop being a ghost and start being a force. Drop a comment below if you've ever been wrecked by someone's silence, or if you're ready to be the one leaving the mark. And hit that subscribe button, because what's coming next is the blueprint to becoming unstoppable. Let's go all in. Let's break down why your silence isn't working, and how to make it so powerful, so unforgettable, that it's the loudest thing she's ever heard. Stay locked in, because this isn't just a lesson, it's a revolution. Let's get into it. Number 1. Your energy still chases her. You thought cutting off contact would shift the universe in your favor, didn't you? That your silence would creep into her mind and haunt her every thought. But here's the reality you're too scared to face. Even in your silence, she can feel you, not as a force, but as a faint buzz in the background, a static that's too weak to shake her. Why? Because your energy still chases her. You might have stopped texting her, stopped calling her, stopped showing up in her life, but you're still there. In every corner of your mind, every hour you spend replaying memories, she lives rent-free. And as long as she owns that space, your silence is nothing but noise. You think silence is power. No, silence without detachment is pathetic. It's a cry disguised as strength. It's the guy standing at the edge of the crowd, pretending not to care while his heart is screaming for attention. And she feels it. She knows you're still tied to her, like a dog on a leash she doesn't even have to hold anymore. Here's the wild truth. Silence is nothing without severance. You need to cut her out, not just from your life, but from your mind, your emotions, your soul, because right now your energy is like a shadow. It follows her everywhere, unnoticed, but always there. And shadows don't create fear, they create indifference. Let me blow your mind with this. True silence is a void so absolute, so profound, it forces her to feel its weight. It's not just the absence of your words or presence, it's the absence of your existence in her world. But to get there, you have to rip her out of your system like poison. You have to kill the version of you that's still tethered to her. It's brutal, it's ugly, but it's the only way. Think about this. When someone truly detaches, it's like flipping a switch in the universe. Their absence doesn't just leave a hole, it rewrites the rules of the game. Suddenly, the energy shifts, the power shifts, and she feels it. Not because you've gone silent, but because you've taken all that energy you were pouring into her and unleashed it onto yourself. You become untouchable. You're not sitting around waiting for her to notice you. You're out there erasing her presence in your life. You're not stalking her socials, not hoping for a breadcrumb of attention. You're building a life so magnetic, so undeniable, that her world starts to feel small without you in it. You want to know what crazy, soul-shattering silence feels like. It's when she looks for you in the shadows, in the spaces you used to fill, and finds nothing. No trace, no lingering energy. Just a vacuum so complete it forces her to question her own existence in your story. That's silence. That's the kind of absence that gets under her skin and into her bones. But you'll never get there if your energy is still tied to her. If your thoughts are still orbiting her like a lost satellite, you're not silent, you're stuck. And she can feel it. Energy doesn't lie. So burn the bridge in your mind. Set fire to the memories. Take that energy and pour it into your body, your craft, your life. Go build something so incredible, so unstoppable, that even her absence feels meaningless to you. That's when your silence becomes unshakable. That's when it stops being weak and starts being a force of nature. And here's the real kicker. When you truly let go, when you detach so fiercely that you take back every ounce of your energy, she'll feel it. Oh, she'll feel it. Not as a cry for attention, but as a void that swallows her whole. She'll feel the shift, and it'll be deafening, because true silence doesn't just speak, it shatters. This is your moment. Reclaim your energy. Stop chasing her in the shadows. Become the storm she never saw coming. Your silence can either be the weakest thing you've ever done, or the loudest statement you'll ever make. The choice is yours. Number 2, she doesn't see your value yet. She doesn't see your worth. She doesn't feel your absence. And right now, she's probably out there laughing, breathing easy, and sleeping just fine. But let me tell you something that'll rattle the walls of your mind. She doesn't see your value because you haven't become undeniable yet. You want her to feel your absence, to question everything the second you're not around. That doesn't happen because you walked away in silence. That happens because when you leave, you take the air with you. You take the fire. You leave her standing in the middle of a void so deep it pulls her in, swallowing her whole. But here's the kicker. Your absence is weightless if your presence was forgettable. If you were just another body in her orbit, just another man saying sweet nothings, your silence is nothing more than white noise, static. So what do? You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't even whisper her name under your breath. You turn that energy inward and explode. You rise, you evolve. You become a force of nature so magnetic, so overwhelming, that she doesn't just notice you when you're gone. She feels it in her bones. Imagine this. You're walking through a crowd and heads turn. Not because of the way you look, but because of the energy you carry. The weight of your existence shifts the atmosphere, the way you move, the way you speak. It demands attention without asking for it. That's what she'll miss. That's the absence that'll haunt her. But right now, you're not there yet. You're still hoping she'll see you through the fog of mediocrity. Stop. Stop waiting for someone to validate you. Stop living like you're an option. You're not here to be noticed. You're here to make the world stop and stare. How do you do that? You don't just level up. You transcend. You dive into your passions with reckless abandon. You sharpen your mind until your words cut like a blade. You build a body that radiates strength and a soul that burns with purpose. You make every room you step into feel alive. Because when you do that, when you become a man who doesn't just live but dominates, she'll feel it. She'll see the ripple effects of your transformation even from miles away. And when she does, it won't be a gentle realization. It'll hit her like a train, a crashing, blinding realization that she let something extraordinary slip through her fingers. And the craziest part, by the time she notices, you'll be long gone. You won't even care if she finally sees you, because you'll be too busy carving out your legacy, chasing a life so vibrant, so unstoppable, that her absence feels like nothing but a whisper in the storm of your greatness. Let her stay blind. Let her miss the man who could have changed everything, and let her regret it when you're too far ahead for her to catch up. That's not revenge, it's destiny. Your destiny. Number 3. You're playing her game, not yours. You think you're silent, but you're wrong. Every thought you send her way, every hope she'll notice your absence, every move you make to get her attention, it screams louder than words. You're still in her orbit, still spinning in circles she designed. And that's not silence, that's surrender. Right now, you're living like a puppet, dancing on strings you can't even see. Every time you sit there, waiting for her reaction, you're giving her the power. You're letting her call the shots while you stay stuck, hoping for scraps of attention. That's not strength. That's weakness wrapped in fake confidence. Do you even realize what you're doing to yourself? You're wasting time, your most precious currency, on someone who doesn't even feel your absence. You're holding your breath, hoping she'll notice the void, but she won't. Because the truth is, there is no void. If your silence is just another move in her game, it's empty, hollow, meaningless. But let me tell you what real silence looks like. Real silence doesn't play games. Real silence isn't a tactic, a ploy, or some desperate attempt to provoke her. No, real silence is chaos contained. It's the storm you hold inside while you rebuild yourself from the ashes. It's the fire that burns so fiercely in your chest that you don't need her to see it. You feel it, and it's enough. When you stop playing her game, everything changes. You don't just walk away, you break away. You rip yourself out of her orbit and create your own. And in that space, in that freedom, you start to realize something earth-shattering. She was never the prize. You are. You start to see yourself in a way you've never seen before. You're not chasing her validation anymore. You're not trying to prove your worth to someone who can't even recognize it. You're building something bigger, a life so magnetic, so unstoppable, that people feel your presence even before you enter the room. That's the silence that matters. The silence of a man too busy becoming extraordinary to waste another second on games. The silence of someone who takes all the energy he's been throwing at her and turns it inward, creating a version of himself that's untouchable. And when you do that, when you truly pull away, not just physically but mentally and emotionally, you send a shockwave. Not just to her, but to everyone who thought they could take you for granted. Because they'll see it, the shift, the glow-up. The man who doesn't just exist, he dominates. Here's the irony. The moment you stop caring whether she notices, she'll notice. But by then, it won't matter. By then, you'll be on a level she can't reach, living a life so full, so electric, that her opinions are nothing more than whispers in a hurricane. This isn't just about her. This is about you. About cutting the strings, flipping the script, and rewriting your story. So stop playing her game. Walk off the field, burn the playbook, and build a life so legendary that no one, not even her, can look away. That's how you win. That's how you rise. And that's how you become a man so unforgettable that silence isn't just silence. It's a masterpiece. Number 4. She knows you'll break eventually. Every word you didn't say, every call you didn't make, she's already counting on your silence to fall apart. That's the way it's always been, right? You pull back, but only just enough for her to know you're still tethered to her. She doesn't fear your distance. She basks in it. Because in her mind, you're not really gone. You're circling her orbit, waiting for her to pull you back. It's not her you're battling. It's the chains you've wrapped around yourself. Every moment you hesitate, every ounce of energy you pour into wondering what she's doing, you're still hers. Even in silence, you're still breaking for her. And she knows it. But what if you became the silence she couldn't decipher? What if you weren't just a pause, but a void? A silence so deafening it makes her question everything she thought she knew about you. Not because you're playing her game, but because you've left the arena altogether. You don't owe her the weak version of yourself, the one who's too predictable to let go for real. You owe yourself more than that. You owe yourself the strength to create a silence that isn't a strategy. It's a transformation. The kind of silence that builds you, not her. The kind of silence that drowns out the noise of her expectations because you've stopped listening altogether. That's where the shift happens, when your absence stops being a waiting game and starts being a statement. A declaration that you've outgrown the space she kept you in. She doesn't see that coming. She doesn't expect you to become the kind of man who doesn't just survive without her, but thrives in a way she can't touch. That's the silence that changes everything. The silence that doesn't break. Hold that silence, not for her, but for you. Number 5. You haven't shifted your focus yet. Silence. It's a weapon, a void, a space where you think you've done enough by just disappearing. But here's the hard pill to swallow. Silence without purpose is just a dead weight hanging in the air. It's not impressive, it's just empty. You think you're being strong, but all you're really doing is marking time, waiting for some cosmic shift to hand you what you think you deserve. But that shift doesn't come. The universe doesn't reward waiting, it rewards movement. Do you feel the tension? That urge to do something, anything, to shake this rut? That's your wake-up call. You're not meant to sit here in this silence, wasting the time you've been given. Silence doesn't build you up. It leaves you exposed, hanging in the wind, unless you turn that silence into something that screams purpose. What are you doing with your time? Are you sinking into the comfort of inaction, hoping she'll feel your absence? Or are you burning this silence like fuel, channeling every ounce of energy into something that will build you from the inside out? Stop lying to yourself. Silence isn't a passive act, it's a battleground. It's a moment to rebuild from the ground up. Every second you spend sitting in this empty space is another second you could be sharpening yourself, crafting the version of you that will obliterate anything that tries to hold you back. Right now, this silence is your chance to make something that can't be ignored. Every drop of sweat in the gym, every hour spent learning something new, every moment you choose to rise instead of sink, that is where your power is. Your silence becomes a storm, not because you're waiting for her to notice, but because you've started creating a force of nature that no one can ignore. So, what will it be? Will you let your silence drown you in regret? Or will you fill it with the roar of someone who is building an empire with his own hands? The clock is ticking, and every moment you waste is another moment that could be spent chiseling away at your greatness. When you finally step back into her world, it won't be as the man you were. It'll be as the man she never saw coming. Your absence will hit her, not because you played a game, but because your silence will have carved something so powerful into your soul that she'll feel it in the marrow of her bones. This isn't about waiting, it's about becoming, about standing in your silence and transforming it into something that leaves a mark so deep she can't forget it. The kind of power you're building right now, it'll make her wish she'd never underestimated you. Number 6. She feels no sense of loss. Your silence? It doesn't rattle her. It doesn't leave her pacing, wondering, feeling that gnawing ache in her chest when she realizes you're not there anymore. No, she won't feel that. Why? Because you didn't matter enough for her to feel the void. Your presence was just another detail in her life, like the wallpaper no one notices until it's gone. If you weren't making an impact when you were there, why the hell would your absence make her stop and wonder? It won't. That truth, it cuts deep, doesn't it? But you need to hear it. You need to face it, head on, because it's the only way you'll ever be more than just a fleeting memory. Silence only creates a hole when you've already built a foundation so strong she feels the crack when you walk away. And if you didn't leave an impression worth remembering, your silence is just the wind, empty, unnoticed. Let that sink in. She won't feel a thing because she didn't need you in the first place. Your value wasn't there to make a difference, wasn't there to make her feel the space you left behind. Your absence won't disrupt her peace. It won't tear her world apart. Instead, you'll fade into the background like a shadow that vanishes at dawn. But it doesn't have to be this way. You have the power to change the game. You have the power to make your presence something unforgettable. You want to leave her with that sense of loss. You have to build yourself into someone she can't just walk away from, someone whose absence rips her apart, makes her rethink every moment she spent without you. Become the man who is impossible to replace. Not through games, not through empty gestures, but through the raw power of your presence. When you speak, she listens. When you act, the world shifts. You don't just exist, you impact. Every move you make should be a reflection of a man who adds, who builds, who makes her see life differently when you're around. Do that, and when you pull back, that silence will hit her like a freight train. She won't just notice it, she'll feel it in every corner of her being. She'll wake up to that hollow feeling, wondering how she ever let you go. That's the power of a man who makes his absence count. Stop being the background noise and start being the storm. Your silence won't just be heard, it'll echo through her bones. And that's when you know you've built something worth missing. Number 7. You lack purpose in your silence. Silence is a weapon, not a pause button. It's not the quiet before the storm, it is the storm, but only if it's rooted in purpose. If you're just staying quiet to create distance or to play some childish game, you've already lost. Silence without a deeper reason is nothing but a ghost in the room. You might as well be invisible. Your absence won't be felt because there's nothing about you that commands it. Your silence has to land. It has to shake the earth beneath her feet. Otherwise, it's just noise. Empty, meaningless noise. Imagine this. Every time you pull back, every time you choose silence, it's not just for space, it's for transformation. It's the universe giving you a chance to become the man you were meant to be. A man who doesn't need her attention, who isn't sitting around waiting for validation. The man who's too busy building his empire, sharpening his mind, and becoming unforgettable. That's the silence that hits hard. That's the silence that cuts through everything. When you choose silence with purpose, it's not about making her wonder if you'll call. It's about making her wonder if she'll ever get a chance to be part of your world again. That silence should scream, "I'm leveling up. I'm becoming more than you ever thought I could be, and the more you sit and wait, the more I grow." It's a declaration, and it's terrifying, because with that kind of silence, you're not just missing. You're evolving into someone who commands respect, who turns heads the moment they walk into a room. And when that silence finally breaks, when you finally re-enter her world, she won't recognize you. She can't. Because the version of you that left is gone. He's been replaced by a force of nature. You're no longer a man with options. You're a man whose presence is a privilege to be around. And that's when your silence becomes a weapon. It doesn't just make her think about you, it makes her need you. The silence you're practicing right now. It should be a breath between worlds, the time you spend evolving, recalibrating and destroying everything about you that doesn't serve the bigger picture. No more empty pauses, no more silent pleas for attention. This silence isn't about her. It's about the version of yourself that you're building. When your silence has purpose, when it's laced with intent, it won't just be noticed. It will become your legacy. And when you return, she'll have no choice but to fall in line, because that man, the man you've become, isn't just anyone. He's the one everyone else has been waiting for. You'll be the force that upends everything. The silence that crushes all the doubts, the questions, the uncertainty. And in that moment, when you speak again, it won't just be words, it'll be a thunderclap that rattles her soul. That's the power of silence with purpose. The silence that transforms you into something unbelievable. And no one, especially not her, will ever be the same again. Silence isn't just the absence of noise, it's the creation of a vacuum so intense, it pulls everything toward it. It's not retreating, it's detonating. Your silence should feel like a supernova exploding with growth, purpose, and the kind of power that leaves nothing untouched. This isn't about waiting for her to notice you're gone. Forget that. It's about becoming so unrecognizable, so extraordinary, that when your absence finally hits her, it's like a wrecking ball to the chest. She shouldn't just feel your silence, she should drown in it. Silence without purpose is a whisper. Silence with purpose is a roar. You're not playing games anymore. You're tearing down the old version of yourself and building something no one can ignore. Your silence should burn, haunt, and echo long after you're gone. When she realizes what she's lost, don't give her the luxury of regret. Give her the shock of seeing someone she can never reach again. Let your silence scream one thing: I've become someone you'll never deserve.